So, you bought an adventure bike. Congratulations and welcome to the club. Today, I'm going to show you how to ride it. I'm Ian with Moskomoto. And I'm Ian with Moskomoto. Having an adventure bike is a pretty cool experience. It allows you to see places and things that you can't get to in a car. And it also allows you to get there without having to take your bike off the trailer. Last year, I bought my first adventure bike, a Husqvarna Norden 901. And I've put over 7,000 miles on it, with about 2,000 of those off pavement. I've also ridden 900 miles in central Mexico on a rented BMW F700 GS and 1,100 miles in Baja on a Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro. I'm going to assume a couple things out the gate. You either have some street experience, you have some dirt experience, or you have no experience at all. But you've probably never ridden an adventure bike, or if you have, very little. So let's get started. Don't worry if you don't have any experience, or if you're from one background or another. The basics are universal and they're fairly easy to learn. Some of this is just going to be making good habits and breaking bad habits. The first thing is positioning. I'm talking about your body, your feet position, your hand placement. Now let's start off with your feet, because that's how we get on the bike. I like to get on the bike like this, cowboy style. I put my left foot on the left peg and lift my body up high enough to swing my right leg around. Posting up on the peg first is what I call mounting the bike cowboy style. Unless you've been practicing your jiu-jitsu, swinging your leg high off the ground might be a little tricky. Next, there are 3 positions your feet can go, one of which you should never use. The first is the attack position. This is putting the balls of your feet directly over the pegs and pointing your toes slightly inward. I do this once I'm moving and I don't need to shift or use the rear brake. Once I'm off the controls, I'll usually be in this position as it gives me a couple more inches of suspension with my calves, and it allows the best grip on the bike with my knees. Try to keep your toes pointed in. This will prevent you from snagging a branch or kicking a rock, possibly twisting your knee or pulling you off the bike. The second position is the controls position, riding with the middle part of your foot on the pegs. I use this when I'm just starting to move and need to shift or brake. It allows my toes to reach the foot controls. And I'm also using this position when I'm just cruising down the highway to give my feet a break. If you just need a rest from the attack position and it's smooth sailing ahead, don't be afraid to transition as often as you need. But try and stay in the attack position when things look rough. The third position is kind of a no-no. I try not to ever put my heels on the pegs, especially with your feet poking out. And there's a good chance your foot could slip off. When riding through rough terrain, make sure you pinch with your knees and go light on the bars. The bars will shimmy a little bit, but don't fight it. Gripping with your knees allows you to hang on better and control where the bike is going without forcing the bars one way or the other and losing traction and control up front. This is mostly for off-road, dirt, gravel, that sort of thing. All right, let's move up to the body. There's this saying, the weightless rider. And I've heard it from several people, forums, and even people on YouTube. It took me a while to figure out what this really meant, but once I figured it out, it completely upgraded my ability on adventure bikes. The concept is you use your body to help control the bike and don't fight it. When you brake, you lean slightly back. Don't fight it, holding up your whole body with just your arms. When you accelerate, don't let it force you back to where you have to hang on for dear life. Anticipate what you're about to tell the bike to do and compensate as it happens. You can practice this every time you stop and start again. Learn how to be the weightless rider. Arms up and out. This gets harder the longer the day goes on. It allows you to have the most control and be able to react the fastest. Keeping your elbows out on the technical stuff will improve your posture, reaction speed, and ability to handle the bike better overall. I don't do this when I'm on the highway, but anytime I'm about to get jiggy with it, it's arms up for her arm. Let's move down to the fingers. This is one of the most talked about topics in all the body posture posts I've seen on the internet. Where do you put your hands? What do you do with your hands? Ice cream cone, 1 finger, 2 finger, 3. It's a matter of preference. But after I started doing these 2 things, everything changed. I have better clutch control, better grip on the bars. My throttle control is on point, and my braking is instant when I need it, but never too much. The trick is covering the controls. And this means left hand, 1 or 2 fingers on the clutch and 1 or 2 fingers on the brake. I prefer 2 fingers on the clutch and 1 finger on the brake. Now I've adjusted my friction zone to be in this spot right here. This all the way in, even though it's over my other 2 fingers, allows me to come to a complete stop. The bike isn't pushing me forward at all. And as I let out, it immediately begins to engage my clutch. 2 fingers on the clutch allows me to feather the clutch while keeping 2 fingers on the bars. And if I used all 4 fingers on the clutch and hit a bump, I've got no control over how much clutch I just used. On the right hand, you'll want to use 1 or 2 fingers to cover the brake at all times. Even when you're cruising, I do this all the time. I prefer 1 finger, some prefer 2, and it's really up to you. But this does 2 important things. First, it allows you to have instant braking. You're already touching the brake. All you have to do is squeeze. If a car or deer jump out, just squeeze and you'll have shaved seconds off your reaction time without using all 4 fingers and overreacting. And if I feel like I need to brake harder than just 1 finger, I can reach my other fingers around and actually get more braking power on the bike if I need to, but I rarely do. The second thing that keeping a finger over the brake does for me is it gives me a fulcrum when twisting the throttle. When there's bumps and jumps, resting my finger up there lets me be very precise about my throttle control. I prefer my whiskey in a glass, not on the throttle. And keeping a finger up there helps me fulcrum and not send my bike into outer space. Covering the controls like this is going to be a little bit difficult and awkward at first. You might not like it. I didn't like it at first and it was all I could do. I kept forcing my finger up. I felt like my muscles and my tendons were stretching as I was doing that. But now I probably don't ride at all without doing that. Promise after about a dozen or so times and after it's saved you off-road, you'll probably never go back. All right, let's recap. Cowboy up, attack feet, pinch with the knees, weightless rider, arms up, and cover the controls. That's the basic body positions you need to learn. You won't remember them all the first time you hit the trail or gravel road, but the faster you master these techniques, the better rider you're going to become. All right, the next concept kind of goes over a little bit of what we talked about with the clutch, and that's going to be feathering the clutch. I wish I'd known this from the very beginning. Heard about it, I didn't really know what they meant, but it saved me when things get really tough and you can't just lug your bike in first gear. If you're about to kill the bike or you're in that sweet spot where you should be feathering the clutch, you'll know it. Just grab a little bit of clutch, you'll hear the engine rev up, and as the engine revs up, slowly let the clutch out again and kind of feather back and forth. Playing with that friction zone on the clutch and allowing your rear tire to get a little bit more grip while you get more torque from the engine as it sends you up the hill. This mostly happens when you're riding on hill climbs or in areas that you don't have very good traction. This is the same process you use when you first start moving, but just stay in that friction zone, feathering the clutch lever in and out as needed. The next thing is going to be being preemptive. And what I mean by that is you're going to manipulate the bike around your settings to help you. For example, preloading the bike slightly right before a jump will take the weight off the front and possibly the rear of the bike. And you might catch a little bit of air, but it's much better for your bike than just hitting the bump full speed. You can practice this on speed bumps. Slightly before you get to the speed bump, push your weight down into the bike, and right as your front tire hits the speed bump, pull up, and you'll feel the front end get much lighter, and the bump will feel about half as big. Don't trust your mirrors. Always make sure you look over your shoulder. I know we're not in a cage, and we've got the ultimate visibility, but don't trust these 5 square inches that you're looking through to see everything in the road. The car behind you might be speeding up. There might be a bike that's about to pass you that you didn't see. If cars can't see bikes as often, you think bikes can see bikes as often? Always look over your shoulder before you pass. Make sure you use your blinkers. These are just biking basics, but on an adventure bike, when you're going in and out of the trails, back onto the road, you might forget. So don't forget. When you're on the trails and gravel roads, make sure you're using your pegs just as much as your bars to steer. One of the best things that's helped me improve once I hit the gravel is using my feet. I'm pinching with my knees, I'm using my feet on the pegs, and I'm barely using any pressure on my bars. If you use too much pressure, you do something too quick and you're jerky, or if you squeeze the front brake, you're probably gonna go down. And every time I go down, I know exactly why. It's because I wasn't weighting the pegs and pinching with my knees. I was putting too much input in the front, broke traction, and the bike slips out, one way or the other. It's bound to happen. Another thing you should probably practice is picking up your bike. I know it sounds silly, and it's one of the biggest things that people freak out about if you tell them you laid your bike down. I've laid this bike down probably 6 or 7 times now. I think the first time was in my garage, of all places. But it's not like you're going down on the pavement and you're putting damage or dents on it. I've got these crash bars here and bars back here and hand guards. This bike is set up to be let down lightly. I'm not talking about 50 miles an hour on the highway. I'm talking about 2 miles an hour on the dirt road when you gripped the front too tight and the front slipped out. When you grabbed the brakes too tight and the front slipped out. Make sure you know how to properly lift your bike, use your legs, and if possible, have a buddy help. My final tip for you on an adventure bike. Again, whether you're coming from the dirt world or the street world, or you have no experience whatsoever, the final thing is ride your own ride. And what this means is we're all getting to the same destination. Don't try and keep up with your buddy who's been riding for 20 years. He knows his bike probably better than you. He knows the roads probably better, and he knows what to expect. Your buddy will understand. He started out one day as a new guy too, and he might actually appreciate it, not having to look behind in his mirror every 2 seconds, waiting for you to catch up. It'll be much better for you to get there in one piece, safe and sound, than to try and keep up and go over. Remember, the most important thing with riding motorcycles is looking cool, and you're not gonna look very cool if you're dead. All right, we're working on more videos. If you guys have any ideas, let us know in the comment section. And that's all for this one. Thanks for watching. Happy squatching.